Hi everyone, welcome to this afternoon. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today, especially for carving out an hour of your time in the crazy December schedules that we all have. Thank you, and we are thrilled also to be able to share with you our new compliance portal, which was upgraded recently and released to our membership last week. So thank you very much for your interest. We have about 50 people attending this afternoon's webinar, so again that's great to know that there's a really healthy interest level out there amongst our compliance contacts. I might just ask you to let me know if you can hear me. If anyone wants to quickly type in that you can see an opening slide and you can hear my voice, that would be super. Fantastic, getting lots of yeses, that's great. Today we will go for about 50 minutes and I'll try and keep it moving nice and quickly. So let's get started. One more thing, if you can't see the screen well, or if you're seeing a partial screen or not a clear screen, there is a kind of orange crosshair symbol that you might see up on the top left hand side of your screen that you could try pressing, and that might expand your screen to include the presentation today. Says lost sound. So my trusted colleague Chris here is just looking at the sound for some of the members who've lost sound. Great, so let me introduce myself. I'm Sophie. My job is the Standards and Code Advisor. I work in the Effectiveness and Engagement team at ACFID. I have a great colleague, Paul Brunton, who is also a Standards and Code Advisor, and together we are led by the Standards and Code Lead, who this year has been Jocelyn Condon, and next year will be Sarah Burrows, who returns to ACFID from leave. So together we form the Code Secretariat. The purpose of today's webinar is to guide you through the new upgraded compliance portal and give you some technical how-to advice on filling out the online reporting forms. We hope to explain how they work. We hope to take you through a step-by-step of what you need to know, give you some tips and tricks to help you before you start your online reporting journey, and also point out where you can find further guidance and resources. I might add that we will take a journey live through the portal. So if there's any questions that you might have that's related to the journey that we're taking, please just type them in. And if they're kind of larger questions or issues questions that you might have that on a broader scope, then pop them in at the very end of the webinar. And we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can get to today. The webinar is being recorded, and fingers crossed, we really hope to be able to provide that recording to members next week if all our stars align. The webinar today is designed with some assumptions. So we have in the past conducted webinars on the new code, and we have also talked about what the reporting systems and structure will be. So for today, we're just going through the compliance portal itself. So I have designed the journey on the assumptions that you are aware of the ACFID Code of Conduct and what it means for your organisation and for the sector, that you have a role in compliance reporting with regards to our Code of Conduct. Most of you are compliance contacts, and some of you are colleagues of those compliance contacts or CEOs or chairs. That you have some degree of understanding of our new code, which has been in place since June this year, and that you're aware as members that you have annual reporting obligations that you must meet in order to be compliant and to remain as ACFID members and code signatories, and that these requirements vary from year to year. So if any of those assumptions feel new to you or are a bit grey or curly, please stick with us. We might fill those gaps for you as we go through the webinar. If not, just get in contact or have a look at our previously recorded code webinars, which should address those knowledge areas. So just a bit of context, how do we get to this point? On the 1st of June this year, the new Code of Conduct took effect. Also in that month, we sent an email out to each organisation which detailed your reporting requirements for the coming financial year. In the months following, from July to September, the Code team conducted some educational opportunities such as webinars and Code of Conduct cafes in Sydney and Melbourne, designed to increase awareness of the new code and what that means to you and your reporting requirements. In September, we had hoped that the compliance portal would be available for you to start filling in your reporting. It turned out that that was a challenge that a couple of challenges arose, and we couldn't quite make that September month, which brought us into October. We advised all our members of which documents are being called in as part of the code self-assessment round. Could be known as focus areas. So at the moment there are 3 documents, and I'll touch on that a bit later in the webinar. And also we gave all our members that have a financial year end of June and a 2-month extension, two-month extension to their deadlines, which was to cater for the fact that the portal was being delayed. And December, which brings us to now, the compliance portal is now open for you. Today's webinar is to assist you to navigate through the portal and to be able to empower you to fill out those online reporting forms as you need. And January 30th is the first deadline for the first cohort of members under the new code in terms of reporting. So that just gives you a quick snapshot of how we got to today. Getting started, how do I access the compliance portal? The compliance portal itself is an online one-stop shop where you can access your forms, understand what you need to do to report for that year, find resources, submit your reporting forms, receive feedback from ACFID, and also you'll be able to download your certificate of compliance, assuming that you are successful in your compliance status. So you do access it through the My ACFID side of our website. My ACFID is the members only section of our website, and you will need login details to access the compliance portal. We do hear fairly frequently, I can't log in because we've either misplaced login details, we can't remember a password or a username, or you've been locked out. So in terms of login details, if you have entered the incorrect password more than 3 times, I believe, you will be locked out, and only ACFID staff can magically let you back in again, and we'd be thrilled to do that for you if you let us know. But in terms of password and usernames, whilst we can fix that for you, I'd like to just take a moment now to show you how you can do that yourself. So we'll flip to our website and we'll enter the My ACFID side of the website. To sign in. So this is the page you're looking at, and this is where you think, oh, I can't remember my username. You could press forgot username, and in that case you would put your email address, and you would submit your email address, and it will actually email you your username information. Similarly, you can do the same for the password. So that will, you know, especially for the period of around the holidays where you're unable to contact ACFID as we are closed, and you probably will be too, you can actually navigate those two by yourselves. You can also create a new account. So if you haven't been assigned any login details in the past, you can actually register yourself through this way, which I won't do online for you now, but that's an example of how it also works. Okay, I can't get to the compliance portal, access is denied. So it's worth knowing that access to the portal is only granted by the ACFID Code Secretariat or by the compliance contact in your organisation. So whilst you may have login details that allow you into the My ACFID side, the portal access is another layer of security, and we grant people that access, as does your compliance contact. So if you get this access denied screen, once you're trying to access the compliance portal, you'll either need to contact your own compliance contact in the organisation or contact us. Who has access to the portal? So there are 3 roles that we recognise, or 4 actually, but let's go through the top 3. The compliance contact is the person that you assign, or you let us know who is the best compliance contact in your organisation to whom we can communicate with. And we talk to that person about anything code related, anything reporting requirement related. That person also has the rights to submit the completed reporting. The CEO and the chair of the board have the role of approving the completed reporting. Only the ACFID Code Secretariat can change these roles. So let's say the compliance contact is Sarah, and Sarah leaves your organisation and Elsie is now nominated as the compliance contact. Then just let us know and we will make sure that Elsie can access similar rights that Sarah used to have. Then the compliance contact also has the ability to grant access to his or her colleagues. So that really works well for larger agencies who, where the compliance contact might be delegating some information gathering to other people. So she or he may say to a colleague to hop online to the compliance portal and please fill out the governance quality principle, because that might be their specialty. So in order to grant access to their colleagues, they can do that online or we can do that for them. So I'll show you how that works. Let's have a look. Just bear with me for a sec while I pop in some test user details. So, as we mentioned, the My ACFID side of our website. Where is the portal? Comply with a code. Sorry, it's just here. It's the first tab on the rank. So we'll click on the compliance portal and that's what it looks like. Gives you some contact details. The name of your organisation should be there. And it also tells you the period of time that, the reporting period of time that we're talking about. It gives you 6 tiles. The blue tiles are active for you. The grey tiles are not active for you. So in this case, the grey tiles are exceptions report, which is not relevant to CSA Test Company 5. So if you've received an email saying that for the coming financial year, we are looking forward to receiving your code self-assessment, then that's why this is in blue and all active for you, and that's why exceptions report is not required and not active for you, because we don't need that from you for this reporting period. Obviously the other one is your certificate of compliance, which you haven't yet achieved, so it will be grey, but eventually it will be nice and blue and active. So this is the portal homepage, the 6 tiles, and what I wanted to show you right now is the manage access. So I've logged in as a compliance contact for CSA Test Company 5, which gives me access to this blue tile here. And this takes me to a page where it says, select any additional staff you wish to have access to the compliance portal. And in this spot here, whilst this is not a good example, it will have the list of all staff that we know that work in your organisation. So it could be quite extensive. It could be only 2 people. In this case, I haven't actually registered any further staff on this test company, and that's why you're not seeing any. But there will be a little checkbox against their name, John Smith, and then you would tick the checkbox, and that allows John Smith with his own login details to be able to access the compliance portal and input information into the compliance portal. If you wish to remove access from John Smith, you would untick the box next to his name. These are the 3, it tells you who the compliance contact is, which will be yourself if you're logging in. It will tell you who we know the CEO to be and who we know the chair to be at your organisation. And we need to be able to change those. Unfortunately, you can't do those yourselves. They're the 3 roles that only the Code Secretariat can change. But that gives you an idea of who we understand is who at your organisation. It might be worth noting that all this comes from our database, so people move around quite regularly, staff come and go. So as compliance contact, you might look at the Manage Access page and be a bit surprised that Bernadette Smith is still listed, even though she left the organisation 3 years ago. So feel free to get in contact and just let us know, give us some updates. Bernadette's left, all these people, please remove them from our organisation, and then we'll update our database, and that will be reflected on this Manage Access page. So I'll press save. And that takes us back to the portal homepage. Great. So there are 2 reporting scenarios. Every year in June, our members will receive an email to advise what the reporting requirements will be, when they are due, and it will clarify for what reporting period. So we have members with financial year ends of June, September, October, December and March. So that's why that email that comes to you will be customised, and it will tell you exactly what we're needing from your organisation. There are 2 scenarios. Having a look at scenario 1, that email might say, we require your organisation to submit a code self-assessment. You will be asked to also submit your annual report and financial statements. And during this time, you'll also be asked to include documentation, which has been called in, otherwise known as the focus areas. You could call scenario 1 as a full reporting year, and it occurs once every 3 years. So that's it's a bit of a heavy hitter, but it's a really good process to go through. Scenario number 2, you could be told that your organisation is asked to submit an exceptions report and its annual report and financial statements. So that's what you could refer to as a light or non-reporting year, and it occurs every other year. So so at the moment you should all know your reporting requirements for your current financial year or your previous financial year. Let's take a test drive through the portal based on scenario 1. So CSA Test Company 5 received an email in June telling them that we would like them to fill out the code self-assessment, the annual report and financial statements. This tells you when they're due dates. Now, for some reason on this test company they're different, but you will find that they should be the same. So we have aligned them so that they're not due on different dates, not initially anyway. It will tell you a status. So this code self-assessment or CSA is currently in progress. It hasn't been submitted, it's just in progress. And this tells me also that 1 out of the 32 commitments has been completed or filled in successfully. And I've got 31 left to go. So let's hop on the code self-assessment. you'll see 9 tiles. They correspond to the 9 quality principles, which are listed at the top. Under each quality principle, it lays out the commitments associated with that quality principle. I have filled out one, so we'll have a look. You can tell that this one's been successfully filled out, and you can tell that all the others may have been started, but they are definitely not yet finished. So they are indicated by a cross. And this being that 1 out of those 5 commitments have been successfully completed. So let's take a look at 2.3. Commitment 2.3 is we promote gender equality and equity. Now, under every commitment, there's 32 commitments in total, you are being asked to explain how your organisation is compliant with the commitment. So this requires some qualitative information. This is your opportunity to prove to your board, or to explain to your board and to ACFID how yourselves are currently compliant and are meeting all the requirements associated with that commitment. So in that data, we're looking at a demonstration of how you are compliant. We're looking at understanding what policies and processes you have in place to ensure compliance. And we're looking to understand what programs, what any additional evidence, supporting information or examples which illustrate how you are compliant. You will find that it has a minimum of 150 words and a maximum of 400 words. Now, some might recollect it was a minimum of 200 words, but we've changed that down to 150 as a result of some testing with some generous guinea pig members who are happy to give us some feedback on their testing processes. You can use a full editing suite here. You can link staff policies. So if you wanted to link that to your website, you can do so. You can make things bold, you can highlight things, you can do dot points if you like. So you have access to all these functions. It also gives you a word count. So at the moment there are 233 words in this explanation, which gives me the green cross. Now if I was to take some of those words out, now I've only got 140, so it's giving me the red cross. It's telling me I need to provide more words. I'm going to put more words, press return, and it's going to give me a word count. So that is a good indication to you about how well you've answered that question, or at least in terms of a word count. And the reason why it should be a minimum of 150 words is, excuse me while I just have a drink, is that we're hoping that you can respond to the compliance indicators underneath. So that explanation should touch upon this compliance indicator, this compliance indicator, this compliance indicator, and this compliance indicator. So that's your one place in order to explain how your organisation meets and demonstrates that compliance. Great, so moving down from the explanation section, we're on to compliance indicators. This is the checkbox function, so we don't need more explanations here. We just need to know, we would like you, please, to indicate your compliance level. Each compliance indicator has a compliance verifier which describes the evidence that your organisation is required to have in place to be compliant. And these are found here. So let's have a look. For example, members demonstrate an organisational commitment to gender equality and equity. You might think to yourself, yeah, I think we do. I think we are pretty much committed to demonstrating that. But the only way really to find out if you are compliant or non-compliant is to click on the compliance verifier, which I've just done, and that takes you right through to the compliance verifier, which is right here. And that is asking for a policy, a statement or guidance document that commits your organisation to promoting gender equality and equity. So you might think to yourself, okay, our spirit's there, we think we're practicing it, but I actually haven't seen a policy statement or guidance that commits ourselves to doing that. And in that case, you would have to say that you are non-compliant. So you go back and you tick the non-compliant box, of which I'll just show you. So you tick the non-compliant box and up pops a text box where we are looking to understand how you're not compliant, what actions are being taken to remedy compliance, and a time frame for action. So an example of what you would write here is, whilst we have been working towards this, we also note that these specific document requirements are new to the new code. As a result, we are still in the drafting phase of developing a focused policy on this issue. It is expected to go to the board for endorsement in March 2018. So that identifies the fact that you've flagged it, you're drafting, it has a finish date for compliance, and that's what we want to hear. For the sake of today, I've ticked compliant to all of these, but the only way you would know is by clicking through on each situation to the compliance verifier. So tick box, tick box, tick box, and that's complete. And after you get through the compliance indicators, you get to the good practice indicators. Now, these are not related to compliance. They are instead a benchmark of higher standard of practice than set out in the Code of Conduct. They are something for you to aspire to if you're not yet achieving them. They are also for us to understand where our members' strengths are and where our members' weaknesses are, so we can better tailor our educational opportunities to meet your needs. So let's say, oh, gender focal person in place. Do you have, oh, you were talking about this the other day, but it hasn't yet been assigned, so you're not achieving that yet. But let's say you might think women's rights, gender equality and equity and other relevant gender issues are promoted regularly in our communications, in our external communications, and you would say, yes, you're achieving that. So you tick yes, and it's a simple checkbox. Are you achieving it or are you not achieving it? It's no big deal if you're not, but it just definitely gives you something to think about for improving practice. And then you press save, which saves all of your answers and also takes you back to the CSA homepage. And that has recorded the fact that 2.3 has been successfully filled out. So we're still on scenario 1. So the CSA Test Company 5, I've just walked you through the code self-assessment. The annual report and financial statements are also required to be uploaded and provided. So let's click on this one. This is really easy. It's quite similar to our previous system where we're asking you to upload your annual report and your financial statements. So each file size needs to be 10 mega or less, which is written here. You probably only need to upload one annual report, but some cases it's part 1 and part 2. You are able to add multiple documents, but I've accidentally uploaded the wrong document. I would press the trash can button and let's upload another document. Let's CSA example. I've selected it, it's attached, and now it's there for you. So when it comes to the financial statements, if it's not inside your annual report, you would also need to upload this. In many cases, it is already presented inside the annual report, of which you would then tick this box here. So they're complete, and then you would press save. And cancel, which takes you back to that home page. There's one more thing that I might quickly show you with scenario 1. So we've had a walk through the CSA, we've had a walk through the annual report. During this time, you'll also need to upload documentation as to the focus areas. So I'll quickly show you how to do that. In previous systems, we've asked for those documents to be uploaded as in this section, but in this case, we are now embedding this in the code self-assessment. So if you're unsure about what documents you need to upload or what documents you need to be called in, take a look at this page here. There's a special web page called Focus Areas, and it tells you exactly what we are calling in, what we are required. So in this case, it's the monitoring, evaluation and learning process or policy. In this case, it is the partnership commitment policy, and then it's also this related to financial wrongdoing. So this is your place that you find out what you need to upload in advance. Just going to quickly go back. And where do you upload those documents? There is a documentation required, and documentation required. So you upload them in the relevant section of the CSA. So if we hop on this one, for example, commitment, explain how your organisation is compliant, and then it goes and tells you that this commitment requires uploading documentation. So in this case, it tells you that it's policy. If you're unsure of what that should look like, then you go and click through the hyperlinks to the relevant compliance indicators, and you add the document, similar really to the process that I just showed you before. So that's scenario 1. Let's take a test drive through scenario 2, which applies to a non-reporting year or light reporting year for those needing to fill in an exceptions report. So I will actually now need to sign out and sign in as a new test user. So just bear with me for a second, please. Great. So I've gone in as a different organisation. I'm into my ACFID. I'm into complying with the code, straight into the compliance portal. And this is what it should look like for you if you have been asked to submit an exceptions report. You can see now that the code self-assessment is not relative to you for this reporting year, but instead this tile is now active and it tells you when it's due. So let's click on that one. And that takes you directly to the exceptions report. Now the exceptions report is a simple online report, and its main purpose is to ensure that your organisation remains vigilant with your commitment to compliance, and that you're always actively seeking ways to ensure that code compliance is observed. The rationale behind this is that members governing bodies need to monitor your organisation's compliance with the code at all times. So let's just look at filling out the exceptions report, and then I'll probably give you some tips about how to go about that at the end. In this case, I've already populated some of that information. So let's say let's add an exception. So I've pre-identified in the organisation in which we work that maybe not that one, sorry. Let's say that we've pre-identified that we have provided professional development opportunities for staff randomly, but we actually, come to think of it, have not provided any opportunities for staff in the last 2 or 3 years because we've been really busy. So in that case, you will have already decided that you're non-compliant, but you could definitely fix that quite easily. So you would click that you are not compliant with that section of the code. You then need to let us know the period that you were non-compliant for. Now this is an educated guess. We're not into exact dates, but we're looking at whether it was a short period or a longer period. So in this case, let's say we were only non-compliant for between 1 and 3 months. Here we're looking at an explanation of what you're planning on doing about it and when it will be fixed. So I'm going to just write some gobbledygook, but it could be something like, you know, a statement has been written, and this process is now embedded in the annual staff review process, which is rolling out in September this year. So it's expected compliance will be achieved by then, and which you then fill out. Pick a date that you believe is a safe date for which you should be achieving compliance, and then you press OK. And that will be listed there for you. If you don't like what you've seen, or someone tells you that no, you know, you thought you were non-compliant, but in actual fact you believe that you were, you would then press the trash can, and it would remove that line. So that is the exceptions report. It might be worth just noting right now that the exceptions report is simple, but it's not something that you probably would start. You would start firstly by going through the code compliance indicators and their verifiers to predetermine what areas you would be non-compliant, and take that information, the non-compliance information, and pop it into this report. So this is not your starting point. The starting point should probably have happened prior to logging on to fill out the exceptions report, because there's really no thorough way to understand any areas of non-compliance unless you have checked over every single compliance verifier. If you need more advice on that, I'm happy to provide it. And we have been giving people an Excel document over the past couple of months to help them with doing those tick box checking to pre-identify any exceptions. And that takes us back to the portal homepage. That's exactly as previously described. Great, so hopefully that gives you a taste of what scenario 1 looks like. It gives you a taste of what scenario 2 looks like. Just looking at going back to scenario 1, so giving you some principles, what the new CSA asks of our members. You're asked to report against the 32 code commitments. So that's the bit that we're asking for an explanation of a minimum of 150 words. We are looking for that explanation to span the compliance indicators under that commitment. We are interested in learning about how you comply, and learning about examples and evidence and policies and processes you have in place to ensure that you are compliant. We're not so much interested in lengthy essays. It's more the quality of the information that you're providing. It's probably, think of it as an investment. So if you spend some time now really doing some research and writing down quality answers to those 32 code commitments, it won't be wasted. So in 3 years' time, when you're asked to do another code self-assessment, you will have access to that information. You will probably need to edit it or adapt it for the future in 3 years' time, but in actual fact, think of it as an investment now into your own quality processes and into your code compliance reporting. Also, the CSA asks of our members to tick your compliance level against the 90 compliance indicators. So we don't need commentary, we just need to know whether you're compliant or not. And we have mentioned in past opportunities, you know, we don't expect all our members to be instantly compliant with the new code. If there are areas of non-compliance, we would please err on the side of honesty and we do understand that there are areas that that won't be instantly compliant. So please identify what they are. What we want to hear is that you've identified them and that you've come to an action plan to remedy your compliance. Yes, so Denise, thank you very much for your question. Will we be able to get a Word version of the CSA we submitted last year? Yes, I can. Well, it's a PDF actually, but there are plenty of ways from converting a PDF to a Word, so that should be okay. So to answer that question thoroughly, there will be a function that will enable you to download your completed CSA. It's not there yet. We're hoping that that will roll out next week. But any information that you're putting into the system now will soon be able to be downloaded as a PDF document. If, Denise, you're referring to any previous reports under the old code, we have removed those from you are unable to access them at the moment, but we as a code secretariat can provide them to you. So if you just flick us an email, I'm happy to send that through as a PDF for your referencing. This is just touching on the additional documentation required. I've actually went through that on the website, so I won't go through that too much at the moment, but that's basically how you know that the documentation is required and where you upload it. Approval. So let's just catapult right to the end. So you've completed all your online reports, feeling happy. We need approvals to go through. So what needs online approval? The CEO and the chair provide approvals for the CSA and the exceptions report. They don't need to provide approvals for the annual report and financial statements. How is this approval given? The compliance contact submits the completed reporting online. The compliance contact would then notify the CEO and the chair that they've completed their reporting and ask them to go online and provide their electronic approval. They do this by logging into My ACFID to the compliance portal, and there'll be a button that will say approve. They don't need to do this concurrently. It can be done separately from anywhere around the world with internet access. There should also be, if you're the compliance contact, you probably would look at the compliance portal, and the status symbol here would say something like awaiting chair approval. So that should give you a reminder about maybe following up with the chair that this still hasn't been submitted to ACFID because we are waiting for that chair's approval. So the status line will help you manage that system. These are examples of what the approval process looks like. So for the annual reporting financial statements, which don't require the CEO or chair sign-off, you're asked to press the submit button. And once you do press the submit button, the portal blue tile will be updated to give you the current status. The approval for the exceptions report, down here, the compliance contact would press approve. It will remind you also that, it will press submit, and it will remind you that the chair and CEO will need to go on and press approve. That's the way that works. Feedback provided by ACFID. So let's assume that all of your reporting has been completed and approved by your CEO and chair, and we've received it, and the status will say submitted, awaiting ACFID feedback. So that's when you sit back and wait for us. We will review the documentation that you've sent in and provide feedback through the portal. So in this case, this is an example where resubmission is required, so i.e. remedial actions are given. So a pop-up box will be there, and we'll give you feedback on what needs to change in order to for that item to be compliant. Sometimes it might be just educational comments. It won't be resubmission. It will be just, this is a great start. In the future, we would recommend that you look more closely at compliance indicator 2.3.2 and address this, in a more robust manner. Have a look at example policies here, for example. So there might be educational feedback, or it might be feedback that actually requires you to do some work and resubmit back to us. That's how it will look, and you'll be notified that when that feedback is ready. That's an example of the status changing on your tile, and it goes back to being 0 out of 2 because in this case resubmission is required. Then the certificate of compliance. Each year after the Code Secretariat has successfully received and approved your reporting requirements, you'll be issued with a certificate of compliance for that reporting period. What's changed? We have changed the design of the certificate. We've also changed the way it's delivered to you. So instead of waiting a couple of months to come through Australia Post, it should be now instantly available to you once you have achieved compliance, and it will be available to you through the portal. We won't be printing out as routine a copy and posting it to you, but we're happy to do that if you ask us nicely. Yeah, just trying to move into the modern age, and hopefully that instant availability of your certificate will help with other DFAT processes that you might have going on. And this is an example of how Bananas in Pyjamas have just achieved code signatory status. And that's our new design. And I've circled this bit here because this is a new addition to the certificate. So your CEO will be named there, and their position, which most likely will be Chief Executive Officer. And the idea is that you would ask them to sign it, and it becomes more of a pledge between ACFID and our valued member, or a contract or something that we are both working together to ensure compliance. So we thought that was a step in the right direction and better reflects what the entire code of conduct is about. Tips and tricks before you start reporting. So I've taken you through the portal, but these are some tips that we think are probably worthwhile taking note of. Preparing your answers in advance in another format, copying and pasting them across. It's kind of foolproof, really. It's just in case you come across, you get logged out, you get a blackout, you lose internet access. You've always got a copy of what you've sent in. Hot tip number 2, having an idea prior to starting the process of what documentation you will need to attach and upload. So not letting that take you by surprise, but instead having them available so you can upload them nice and quickly. Hot tip number 3, if you're working from 2 screens, it's quite efficient because you're constantly flicking between the compliance verifier and the online reporting forms. If you're looking at one screen, you're opening up a whole lot of different windows. So one of our members suggested just printing out the quality assurance framework and going through the verifiers that way. What are some key documents to help me? We've developed two new ones here, and we've also included some popular ones, and I'll show you where they sit. So in the tips and tricks button, this is where you will find all your resources related to code reporting. Let's click on that. You've got these 2 documents. The user guide is how to, what you should know before you start. The technical guide is really screenshots, how to upload documents, etc. After taking this webinar, I hope that you won't need to access this one. You'll find the code of conduct, the quality assurance framework, and the good practice toolkit. And you've got some of these key documents I talked to you about. This one's really popular, Old Code to New. It lists all the documentation requirements that you need as an organisation to be code compliant. It groups them in as their subject, tells you where they are in the code, and it tells you the differences from the old code to the new. Let's go back. Frequently asked questions, again, a really good document we're constantly adding to. What policies do I need to put on my website? This has changed from the old code to the new. What about DFAT accreditation? What's the interpretation of this word? So have a look at that one. You've got the annual reporting checklist, the mandatory financial guidance, the link to the recorded webinar on code self-assessment, and when this webinar goes up in the soon, we'll pop that on too. Got Great, so they're tips and tricks. And coming soon, I mentioned before, you will be able to download and print your completed or partially completed online forms. We're just looking at having this finalised very shortly, so expected to be available this month. Again, coming soon, a practice online code self-assessment tool for those members wishing to undertake annual self-help checks. So I mentioned that we've provided that as an Excel spreadsheet, but hopefully in the very near future, our members can hop on and just run through the compliance indicators and verifiers to determine their levels of compliance, which you might like to do annually. So that's a summary. Today, I hope you have a better understanding about the compliance portal. You should have if anything, a vague understanding of how to access it, how to give access to others and potential troubleshooting, the roles of compliance contact, CEO and chair in relation to the portal, how to fill in a CSA, how to fill in an exceptions report, and how to upload your annual report and financial statements, how and where to upload additional documentation, how to ensure your reporting approvals are given and submitted, what to look for in terms of receiving ACFID feedback, changes to the certificate of compliance, tips and tricks, and where useful resources can be found. At this point, I might just also add a caveat that, whilst we are really thrilled with our compliance portal, we are still ironing out the creases, and we haven't gone through the whole cycle of reviewing and providing feedback. So if you find it, so I suppose the point being, if you get to an impasse or you get to an area where you believe it could be adapted or things are not working as you thought, or that we're happy to receive feedback at any point, especially in the coming months for those who are managing their reporting right now, so that we can make this portal the best it can be for our members. And we're always here for questions. Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions? I am so sorry that it was a bit dry today. There was no singing and dancing code portal, but look, thank you. There's no questions that have come through. So happy to be contacted in any way. The code team are off on an early holiday break, but feel free to get in touch with us as soon as you need, and we'll be back online as of January the 2nd. If you want to stay online right now, there'll be a quick survey. Is that right? Just 1 or 2 minutes of your time just to give us feedback about how this webinar worked for you, in order so that we can improve the quality of our webinars and our content for the future. That'd be super. Thank you, everyone, and happy holidays.